we wanted to do something that was like if School of Rock was shot with the severity of Apocalypse Now.
Well, talking about the movie, Giselle, I read the musical was originally a short film you directed while studying at the American Film Institute. So I'm curious if from the beginning the plan was to make a feature film, but first you decided to make a short film to get finance, like
Yeah.
the Chazelles Whiplash, for example.
Exactly. Yeah, my friend who was the sole writer on the film, Alexander Heller, he had already written the feature before he had pitched to make it as a short at school. Because at the American Film Institute, you make three short films in your first year, and they're just production exercises. And the like he and I were the only one. We were like there were a few. We went to a very serious Tarkovsky style class. And like he and I
Okay.
wanted to make comedies. And so we really wanted to work together. And so when it came time for his discipline to pitch a short film idea, he had asked me to direct it. And I don't want to share the twist, but there's
Okay.
something a little bit controversial that happens. And
Okay.
I got scared and I said, I don't think that I can do this without it being offensive. This is such a fine line, like to balance tonally. But then I went through a breakup, and I think that angle of like, when you're like a post breakup, the mania you feel of like being fueled by spite and revenge and wanting to get back at your ex and with your ex at the same time, and those like conflicting feelings of
Okay.
mania really excited me. And so we used that angle in approaching the short and the feature. We wanted to do something that was like if School of Rock was shot with the severity of Apocalypse Now.
Okay, yeah, I heard that. Yeah. Well, talking about Apocalypse Now, I read that Will Real
Hmm.
said in an interview that you asked him to watch Apocalypse Now and the documentary Heart of Darkness.
Yeah.
To know specifically to know how to deal with this chaotic school environment. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you can tell me more about the reason behind it.
I wanted him to watch Hearts of Darkness because to me, that character is like Coppola stuck in the Philippines trying to make his magnum opus. And I love Apocalypse Now, it's one of my favorite films of all time. But in the documentary, it's like shot by his wife. So there's like a vulnerability behind the lens, but there's like also this like honest portrayal of mania when you kind of like lose sight of the goal and you become poisoned by like uh, it's like this like thing of like I'm gonna make this film despite the odds or despite the studio, despite all these actors quitting on me, whatever, trying to quit. And like I feel like that is what I wanted his Will Brill's mental state to be, but with like 10-year-olds instead
Okay.
of Robert Duvall and like Martin Sheen.
Nice. Can you tell me more about the idea of the inspiration behind the script?
It's I mean, I'm definitely the main character and I have a lot in common, but it's not based on a true story. It's about this, well, I just I it was like it was really inspired by this idea of somebody being so like drunk with spite that they lose sense of reality, and setting it in a middle school was such a great juxtaposition to like have him opposite like such a the truest form of innocence, which is like children. What gravitated me towards him for the lead role of Doug is that he had been a struggling actor in New York for like 10, 15 years. And that just like takes such an intense amount of like tolerance for pain where
Hmm.
you're just like I'm going to be the broke artist and I'm going to do this no matter what, and like maintaining that delusion that like I'm here to do the work even though you're like starving and can't pay rent. I very much um can sympathize with as like a filmmaker who's been making short films for like 15 years that no one has seen or cares about, but you still like put yourself in this like
Yeah.
financial ruin because the only thing that matters to you is to make movies, and for him the only thing that matters for him is like is theater, right? And so I read this interview of his where he talked about that era of being broke and like sleeping on people's floor. And I just like, and he's also from a small town in California. I'm from California. And I love the idea. When I first met with him, I was like, imagine you never had the courage to leave your small town. And like, who would you be?
Mm,
Like, where would that pain tolerance, where would that hunger for like creating go? And I feel like that is like often a lot of the film professors that I came across, not all of them. I had some incredible film educators in film school, but like the ones that were like bitter and would see you as like the next generation and like competition and didn't have weren't in a place in their career to be generous enough to educate. I feel like those are the people that kind of they're the first gatekeepers that are like, oh, you think you can make it? Like, and I think that kind of mentality as a teacher is so toxic, especially
mm.
to young kids who have hopes and dreams.
And I
Mhm.
want to know, well, right now in these difficult times, what do you think is the most important or meaningful aspect of being a Latina filmmaker in the United States?
Yeah, I think it's it's so interesting because it gives me so much pride to be able to screen this film in Mexico, where my parents are from, and then at the same time, I'm like, I want so badly to be. I like identify fully as Mexican. I don't even say Mexican American. Don't revoke my citizenship, even though I'm sure that's already like what Trump is trying to do to people
Mm,
literally right now. Like our existence in the States is so inherently radical because we're not supposed to take up space in this medium. It wasn't designed for us, and not to say like it was designed to like outcast us. It just wasn't. And so it like just breaking in. And I actually heard Luis Valdez say this. He's a Chicano playwright. The documentary American Pachuco is so amazing. That
mm,
was the first film I saw at Sundance. I know it's also playing in Mexico City,
yeah.
but I got to hear him at the Q&A at Sundance because I was feeling it was like during when the two American citizens were murdered during like by ICE. That was around the same time as the Sundance Film Festival took place, and it was a
Mm,
really emotional time for a lot of us. Um, and he was like, Luis Valdez said, you know, I saw rage eat the Chicano movement alive. I saw rage eat up the anti-war movement, but like we have to remember like the most important thing for us as like any minority is to just celebrate our identity and to make music, to make art, to make films, to like to dance and to just like perpetuate joy despite all of the anger and hatred. Because like, and I feel like Bad Bunny Super Bowl really exemplified that, where like I'm
yeah.
going to display resistance in with joy, and that like nothing can infuriate anybody more, especially people filled with hatred, than just like I'm going to be happy despite your efforts to destroy that. And and I just think that that was so unifying for every Latino, for every minority. And that's why I feel like I gravitate towards comedy, because it's like so easy. I feel like my neutral is rage. I'm always angry about everything that's happening with American politics and how it affects literally the entire world because of this like evil imperial empire. But like
Yeah.
I I just I so it really is disheartening to be a part of like to have my citizenship be representative of like the bully of the world, you know? And like that's why I'm like I all I want is to like it is a huge privilege to be able to say that and to be able to talk about our government this way, and I don't want that privilege to be taken away. But I also have so much pride with my Mexican heritage, and so to be able to come and screen my comedy about everything that I'm angry about and like the kinds of politicians that weaponize tragedy for their own agenda
Mm,
is very much a through line in the musical. And once you see it, we can talk about it more deliberately. But like I I think like I don't know, it made me really emotional to find out that we were screening it in Mexico City. This is like our international premiere because of how I identify. And I feel really grateful that you took the time to have a conversation and to spread the word about the film, because it does make me really excited to be able to have our international premiere in Mexico, and my parents are coming, and
nice.
Yeah, it's like my favorite city in the world, and I try to go every year. So it means a lot, and I'm really grateful that you took the time to interview me.
Excellent. Well, Giselle, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to meet you in a few days here in Mexico City. Best of luck, and thank you so much.